So, good afternoon, everybody. Dominic from Flings. Thanks for the intro, Gary. As mentioned, we're going to kick off the afternoon with a short keynote on data and how it powers innovation. This is the way we pick to play everyone's favorite game, which is try not to pass out from food coma. So hopefully it will prove effective. Now, considering this topic could probably compete as one of the broadest ones in the world, I thought we would tame it a little bit by structuring it in 3 different parts. So in this talk, I'm going to cover chapter 1, during which I'm going to push on you the idea that data does indeed power innovation, more precisely all innovation in the financial sector. So we're going to elaborate on that, scope that out a little bit. Afterwards, we're going to move on to part 2, in which I am going to cover what are the challenges in Canada today to leverage data properly in order to power innovation. And then we're going to conclude with part 3, which is going to be the most fun, because obviously you keep the fun for the end, in which I'm going to make some predictions on the changes that are coming over the next year or so regarding these challenges from part 2. So before I kick off with part 1, super quick word about me, because some of you are maybe in their seats right now thinking, who is this guy to be talking about all of that? So I'm Vice President Corporate Affairs at Flings, as written up there. What this entails in my day-to-day is mainly 2 things. One of them is to deal with Ottawa quite a little bit, because the technology we deploy every day really pushes against the limits of the existing regulations out there, right? Like, we work in data portability all day long, while we don't have yet formal open banking regulations. So, as you can guess, we are heavily involved with all the conversations going on at Finance Canada for open banking, with the Bank of Canada for RPAA and all that stuff. So that's one big part of my job. And the other one is working on our data partnerships with an industry. So API contracts with banks, data sharing networks, and the like. So all of the perspectives and insights I'm going to give during my talk are coming 100% from my everyday experience. So if you go ask a banker, a government person, a management consultant about their take on this, could be entirely different. I'm giving you mine today. So without further ado, let's get into chapter 1 of the talk. Data powers innovation. So, I mean, it does, right? Just think about one use case in financial services. Lots of lenders in here, so probably a lot of people are going to think about their own use case in lending. Just think about it, and don't worry, we're not going to say to write it down and give it to your neighbor and see if it's the same one or anything like that. Just think of it for yourself, and now think of what data set it runs on. You know, so if you're thinking, oh, what about when I onboard my client? There's data sets that power this, right? Your client's identity data, for instance. If you're thinking about credit decisioning, there's data sets behind this too, right? You probably use a credit report. That's a data set. Maybe you complement it with Flings technology with transactional data, another data set, so on, so on. So all use cases are powered by data, even the ones where it may seem less obvious. You know, one thing I've heard a number of times throughout the years is, yeah, Dom, you know what? Open banking sounds great and all. The formalization of data sharing is going to be great. When we can get data through APIs instead of screen scraping, of course, it's going to be a bit better for security, consistency, and so forth. But you guys already provide us with great data connectivity. I think it's only going to marginally affect my business. What I care about mostly is the money movement, like payments. That's what's going to really improve my business. And the ability to initiate payments from within their application, your applications, at low cost, no interchange, like that's what I care about. And when I hear this, I'm like, sure, 100% agreed. Point of order though, even payments run on data when you think of it, right? Like a transaction is basically two sets of numbers in two ledgers that each get adjusted at their respective ends, going through obviously all the processing in the middle. But even even for that use case, data is the cornerstone. So now that I've pushed this on you plenty, I've hit that nail enough at this point. We've established data is cornerstone of innovation, right? Whatever your use case is, if you can access more data sets, if you can interpret data better, you can optimize your use case. So now, in Canada today, what are the challenges to playing with data like this? I'm gonna hit on some themes that I assume are very familiar to everyone in this room. We hear in the news about open banking being delayed all the time. We hear about payment modernization being delayed all the time. What these themes have in common is that they point to a lack of access to data in the country, right? And this lack of access is there because there is no right to access this data, right? If you want to access your client's banking data, of course there's means to do it, but the client does not have a fundamental right to data portability, where they can go to their institution and say, I demand that you share my data with this provider who I want to use, and it's my right, so you have to do it. By extension, you, as the provider, do not have the ability to go to the bank and say, I demand that you share with me the data that our mutual customer wants you to share with me. So there's no right. So, and it's the same thing, by the way, with payment rails, right? You do not have a right to access payment rails directly and do the data manipulation that I was talking to you about, which equates to a payment, ultimately. You don't have a right. You can go through a provider that has this right and that are gonna do it for you, but you don't have it. You can try to become a member of Payments Canada. You can try to apply at the Bank of Canada to get a settlements account. You can go to Interac and say, hey, can I get direct access to the rails? You can try all these things, but you don't have a right. There is no charted path that you can take and say, I'm gonna fill this form and get this certification and do all this list of things, and I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get the right to access my client's data. I'm gonna get the right to initiate a payment myself directly. There's no fixed path, because there's no right. So to me, this is the fundamental challenge standing in the way of companies like all the ones in this room, and better ability to leverage data, which, as we said in part one, is key for innovation. When some people point to, yes, but there's also the fragmentation in the market. We don't have a standard for data sharing. We don't have XYZ. I always go back to the root cause, which is the lack of a right to access. Because the day where you have that, it opens up participation to so many more players, and then market forces get in action and they solve these things, right? It's like, if we say that today there's no standard for data sharing in open banking, and that's a problem, again, the root cause is the lack of access. We don't have open banking APIs at all, so of course there's no standard. the day where we have a ton of open banking APIs and a ton of players accessing them, the demand is going to get created for this standard over this one, right? So the mother of all issue is the lack of access. So that's part 2 of this talk being concluded right here. Part 1, data, cornerstone of innovation. Part 2, the challenge to get better access to data is the lack of a fundamental right to access it. Now we get to the final and I believe most interesting part, part 3, predictions. So 2 predictions I want to submit to this room today on how this is going to change over the next year or so. Prediction number 1 has to do with access to financial data. So we're in the waters of open banking here. And full disclosure, these predictions will not be the cheerleading type, oh yeah, we're going to get open banking and payment modernization, it's going to solve all our problems. It's purely realist predictions, my very real predictions from me to you. So prediction number 1, with regards to open banking, I'm not holding my breath for open banking to magically cause all financial institutions to open up an API at some point. I'm not going to elaborate on the reasons too much. I'm sure most people here have their own idea about why that would be, and they're probably right. But if you just look at the track record here, like the government's been talking about it for 5 years, still nothing. Yes, right now we have an open banking lead that apparently submitted a report and has had his mandate extended. So what now? We maybe get another report. Maybe it gets delayed like the last one, maybe not. Even if it comes out and there's a deadline that says we're going to get APIs by that date. We already had a deadline, which was supposed to be January 23. So I don't think the magic is going to come from a government mandate, which is sad news. I wish I turn out to be wrong. I wish. But again, this is my real prediction. I don't think that's going to be a magic trick that's going to swoop in and unlock the access to financial data that everyone in this room would like to have. That being said, it comes with a big silver lining, which is my first prediction. And that prediction is that we are going to start seeing individual open banking APIs appear throughout the country over the next year. There's already one that exists, and that is live. And it's the one with National Bank, who we built a bit over a year ago, and we have been operating ever since. Millions of API call, no downtime, everything nice behind the promise of open banking, so no more sharing of credentials. Customer can revoke their permission from within their online banking, all that good stuff. It's been there for a year at National Bank. So if today your company uses Flinks for connectivity, if your client goes to National Bank, it's API powered with all the good stuff. If it's another bank, it's the traditional screen scraping. That's the norm for the rest of Canada today. I predict that over the next year, more and more banks will start to be API powered in that interface. In some cases, I can tell you they're being built right now, these APIs, and in others, I can tell you that the players in market are having extremely serious conversations where they're saying, you know what? This is not about the conversation with government, but we want to stand this up. Could we do this way with you guys, et cetera, et cetera. So it's happening. That's prediction number 1. Open banking APIs are coming this year. There's going to be much more of them. Prediction number 2. This one has to do with payments. And it's quite similar to prediction number 1 in 2 ways. The first way is, I don't think we are getting a real-time rail anytime soon. Again, I'm sure everyone has their own theory of why that's likely, and they're probably right. The player's supposed to build it, not the most incentivized in town. government in power right now hasn't demonstrated a lot of will to really do it. So all of these are the foundations of why I don't think it's likely we're going to see it. Not this year, at least. That being said, just like prediction number 1, there's a big silver lining. And in this case, and that's my prediction number 2, I think we are going to see the first products this year appear in Canada that will offer the equivalent of what we know, what we often call account-to-account payments. So these are basically payments where the user does not have to be redirected outside your application. There's no interchange involved. There's no risk of clawback because the funds are guaranteed by the people powering this product. And there's an instant feel to the end user. So some people call them account-to-account payments. Some people call them pay by bank, open banking payment, couple different names. But the characteristics I just listed, I predict there will be some products in market this year that will offer this in the Canadian market. So there you have it, my two realistic predictions, so no icing on them. They are what they are, of what's coming in the country. And right now, there's probably a bunch of people thinking, why do we have a Flinks guy on stage making these predictions? Is it possible that Flinks has their hands in the pie on both these things? That would be a very good guess. So, in closing, well, first, I hope this was interesting and that we succeeded at our game of don't pass out from food coma. I hope everyone is going to enjoy the afternoon tremendously. And if we're already doing business together, talk to your Flinks point of contact in the next weeks and months and interrogate them on these predictions to see how they're coming along. If we're not already working together, find one of the points of contacts and please do inquire anyway.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Dom, when you say end of year, do you mean in the next few months?
1 calendar year.
Yes.
Good prediction, good precision.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gary.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And as promised, I'll now put this back.
Yeah, let's do it.